Good morning, St. Augustine. Your access to the voices of top local newsmakers starts now. Here's your host, Liz Ryan.
Good morning. It's nice to have you along today. This morning, I'll be chatting with my new friend, Mr. Ken Yarbrough. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here with me today. There's so much to talk about. It's hard to squeeze it all into 30 minutes. But first, for the few people in St. Augustine who don't know you or your band, the Landfall Band, a little bit of background. Tell me, Ken, where you grew up.
I grew up in Arkansas, but I moved here from Gulf Shores, Alabama. I was a sailor, been on sailboats most all my life, and a friend of mine found an Island Packet 38 sailboat that was docked at the Conch House Marina. That was back in 1998, and I'd never been here before, and I bought the boat, and I met a girl and never left. Been here, 20-some-odd years, almost 25 years this year. So,
what made you fall in love with St. Augustine?
Well, there's a lot of things. It reminded me a lot of Key West, just the architecture and the flavor of the town and the waterfront, but one of the things that I noticed right away was that St. Augustine was a real town. I love Sarasota, but nobody's from there. And I realized right away that St. Augustine had these old families that went back generations. One of the first two or three people that I met was the old patriarch of the Ponce family, James Ponce, over at the Conch House, and that's where the boat was that I bought. So I walked into the marina office one morning, and this old gentleman was in there and introduced himself, and he said, "My family's been here 365 years." And he was a very interesting old man. He's not with us any longer, but this was a real town with real families that had been here a long, long time, and that was different than the other places that I had been in Florida. And obviously I love the water, and the town had an inlet, and so it was good for boating and sailing and fishing. So,
do you still sail around this area? I
sail quite a bit. Up until recently, I worked as a captain over at St. Augustine Sailing. And I sold my last sailboat during COVID, that back in 2019, 2020. So I'm boatless for the first time in my adult life. But but we're shopping. So but we get out every chance we get. I've still got friends with sailboats, and we just got back from Antigua. We go off and rent and do bareboat charters and things. So I'll never be off the water for long.
What boating or sailing trip that you've ever taken, Ken, in your whole life stands out the most in your mind?
Sailing from St. Augustine to Havana, Cuba.
Wow. Yeah, how long did that take?
All in all, the trip took about 2 weeks, but it took us a little less than a week, I guess, from here to Havana, because we stopped in Fort Pierce on the way down, Cape Canaveral, and we stopped in the Keys for a night or two before we made the trip over. But that was 1999. It was still legal to. It was still illegal to break the embargo and spend U.S. dollars there. But the event, the way it was held, the Cuban government waived all of the fees into and out of the country. They comped our fuel, electricity, and dockage. So basically, you were allowed to go there without breaking the embargo. There were 232 U.S. flag boats that were down there as part of the event that we were part of, which was the Havana Cup. Which ended, I believe, in 2001 after 9/11. But there was a large fishing tournament and a sailing regatta, and we were part of the sailing regatta that went down. So,
what's your favorite place to sail in this immediate area?
St. Augustine. The East Coast, as much as I love it, doesn't have a lot of destination sailing as compared to, say, a Sarasota, where you have various islands and destinations that you can sail to in 2 or 3 hours. So, if you leave St. Augustine Inlet, you're a long sail from here up to Jacksonville or Mayport, and you're a full sail down to Daytona, and there's not much to see sailing wise or water wise when you get down there. So this is one of the best. Really is. Did
you ever get caught in severe weather, a bad storm?
I've been real lucky. No, I've not. I mean, I've been caught out in a little squall here and there, but nothing severe, no.
What's your favorite fish to fish for?
Oh, that's a hard question. We spend all spring bass fishing over in the inland lakes west of here. I fish with Robert Johnson on Jody Lynn and a group of guys as often as I can. We tend to bottom fish. Just depending on the season, the time of year. I like it all.
What kind of rod and bait do you like to use?
It just varies depending on what you're fishing for.
Mm-hmm. You don't have one go-to that's your favorite.
No.
You're listening to Good Morning St. Augustine. I'm your host, Liz Ryan, chatting this morning with Ken Yarbrough. You must have met so many people when you were producing magazines. Tell me about those days, Ken.
It was good times. I did it for about 20 years. We had a real good run. I knew nothing about the business I was getting into. Back in 2001, I bought the Homes and Land magazine. That was my first publication. I bought it right after 9/11, which was scary, buying a business at that time.
I bet.
Things that were going on in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But the real estate market also just took off about the time that I bought Homes and Land. So we had a real successful magazine. I think our biggest issue was 170 some odd pages of Homes and Land. And then I bought the Coastal Angler publication, which was a fishing magazine. It was a franchise publication, and it was a lot of fun to do because we covered fishing tournaments and events from Fernandina Beach all the way down to Flagler. So I had that one, and then we had an in-room hotel book called Guest Advantage that was in probably close to 7,000 hotel rooms back in the day. And then we did Old City Life, which is the one we were probably most known for, and I did that one for close to 6 years. And then we had a couple others as well. So.
Thank you for bringing in some old copies of your magazines. I was flipping through them. What beautiful photos!
There's not many of them left. When I sold my office building, I had a ton of the Old City Life mags in archive, and I just didn't have anywhere to store them when I sold the building. So I knew I would regret discarding a lot of those when I moved out of that building, but I had no choice. So I picked out some favorites, and I've got a couple boxes full in my attic, but there's not many left. But we had a lot of fun doing that publication.
And those photos were like a who's who of St. Augustine. Do you still stay in touch with a lot of those folks?
A lot of the people I do. A lot of those folks are no longer with us, but a lot of the people I do. And I joke a lot. I say, I didn't make a whole lot of money with Old City Life, but I made a ton of contacts. And I did, and a lot of good friends that I'm still, involved with today. We covered a lot of great stories, and this is a town of stories, whether it be stories about people or places or events or things that have happened. There's no end to the stories that can be told about St. Augustine, and that's what made that magazine Old City Life so much fun to do.
Can you hit on just maybe one of those stories?
Well, I think the one that is the top of mind right now is what led you to contact me, and that was Wolfgang and Mickey Schau and the donation of the Anastasia Lions to the Bridge Alliance back in 2015 during the 450th celebration.
How did you meet Wolfgang and Mickey?
Robbie and Nicole Nettles at Blue Water Jewelers are friends of mine, and I was in their store one day, and you have to understand, back when I was doing Old City Life, everywhere I'd go, people would recommend stories. There would either be an event or someone had moved to town, or so people were suggesting story ideas all the time. And I was in Blue Water Jewelers, and Robbie said, "Hey, I've got this guy you've got to meet. He's got a great story." And he gave me Wolfgang Schau's phone number, and I called Wolfgang, and he proceeded to tell me what he and Mickey intended to do with regard to these new lions for the bridge.
And what they intended to do was even out the Bridge of Lions. They were puzzled, from what I understand, why there were 2 lions on the west side but none on the east side. So what did they do about it, Ken?
That's correct. Well, and again, there's a lot more to it. They had sailed here on a catamaran from Africa, is my understanding. And Wolfgang called me and correct me if I'm wrong on a lot of this, but they were headed up. They were headed home on this catamaran and sailed into the inlet under the bayfront in St. Augustine. And Wolfgang thought he was in the wrong place. He thought he had misread the GPS and ended up in Spain. He and Mickey were just taken by the city. And they stayed here for a few days on their boat and decided to make this their home. Then they did realize, correct, there were no lions on the east end of the Bridge of Lions. So it happened to be an important marital anniversary for Mickey and Wolfgang that year, and it also happened to be the 450th anniversary of the founding of St. Augustine. So the Schaus, Wolfgang and Mickey, decided rather than to spend a lot of money traveling and buying expensive gifts for each other for their anniversary, they would take that money and have these 2 new lions commissioned in China and shipped back here to St. Augustine and donated to the city for the east side of the bridge.
Do you think they predicted at that time what a long, arduous process this is going to be and how many roadblocks they'd encounter?
No, and you should bring Wolfgang in here to tell the complete story sometime.
I will.
Because I'm telling it secondhand, but I know there were a lot of hurdles. But I've known Wolfgang now for 10 years. He's a problem solver, and he knows how to get things done. And he, along with John Regan and some other city fathers, fathers back then shook the trees and made things happen to get the lions here.
And one of the hurdles they faced, I understand, I met Wolfgang Wednesday night at the 10th birthday celebration, and he was telling me that the base they bought to put the lions on, the bases were too heavy, so they had to replace them with hollow bases. And what did they do with those hollow bases?
Well, that's kind of neat. There's a time capsule underneath the lions, at least under one of them, maybe under both. I'm not sure. It's been a while back. But I know that at the time, a lot of local folks, dignitaries and business owners, we all donated items to go into this time capsule that will be opened in 50 years from the date of the dedication of the lions. So 40 years from now, they'll open the time capsule, and there's mementos of that time in St. Augustine. And there's several copies of our Old City Life magazine that are in the time capsule. So I'm an old man. I won't be here at the time, but please tell your children to, if they're here in 40 years to come out and witness the opening of that time capsule.
So that will be for the 50th birthday of the lions.
That's correct.
And those lions are made out of, I believe, granite. The other two on the west side are made out of marble, I think. But these two are made out of granite, and they have names.
They do, and they're escaping me at the moment.
Pax and Pele.
It's early. Yeah, it's early in the morning. But but again, a lot of these details, Wolfgang, he really tells a good story about how all this came about. So he would. I hope you get him in here. He's a great guy.
Oh, I will. Perhaps next week.
Oh, okay.
So their names are Pax and Pele, and that roughly translates from Latin into English into peace and happiness. But like I like to tell people, when the bridge goes up and traffic is backed up for 2 miles, there's no peace or happiness until the bridge goes back down and traffic moves along its way.
That bridge opens on the hour or the half hour or every time I need to cross it.
Uh-huh.
I was here during 2005, 2006, and 2007 when they rebuilt the bridge. That was another experience that you missed out on.
I did. Yeah, I wasn't here then.
I never thought that would end, but that was another thing that we've experienced here with the bridge. Now, the lions you reference are on the west side.
Mm-hmm.
Wolfgang's and Mickey's lions on the east side also have names, and they are...
those are Pax and Pele, and the ones on the west side are Firm and Faithful.
That's right. That's correct.
And it's Wolfgang's ultimate goal to have his lions, the granite ones on the east side, eventually moved to the base of the Bridge of Lions, directly
I had
adjacent
forgotten that part of the story until he told it last night, and there were a lot of factors involved about that too that we won't go into here today as to why the lions aren't attached to the bridge. But I think where they're at is a perfect location until what time that could happen. But yeah, I had forgotten that the lions face the bridge because that's where they ultimately want to be. I had forgotten that part of the story.
Yep. Right now they face away from the bridge, but Wolfgang wants them to face toward the bridge.
Correct. They face toward the bridge.
Oh, sorry, I have that backwards. And he wants them to face away from
Correct.
the bridge,
yes,
as they should, as they magnificently guard the beautiful historic Bridge of Lions. And Wednesday night, your band, Landfall, played in the shadow of those lions.
We did, and what started, I think, is just a small neighborhood celebration. We started putting it out on social media, particularly that our band was going to be a part of it.
That's where I started. That's how you and I met.
Right. And before we know it, we had 300-some people that were planning to attend, and it became a bigger event than any of us had kind of anticipated. But the weather did not totally cooperate, so it was a bit challenging. But we still had a good crowd there, and was glad we were able to pull it off.
Mm-hmm. You sound, I got to see you for the first time Wednesday night perform, and you sound a lot like Jimmy Buffett. Tell me about your band, Landfall Band, and your history with Jimmy Buffett music.
I grew up on sailboats since I was, 6 or 7 years old. And my parents listened to Buffett. He was kind of the soundtrack of my life growing up. I think it got so overblown there towards the time I moved to Florida back in 1998. I think if I had walked into a bar back in 98 and they were playing Jimmy Buffett, I would have probably walked out. And that was the height of his popularity, and I thought it got a little silly when people were wearing the hula skirts, the shark fins, and I had kind of quit listening to him. And then
it got too hokey for you?
It got a little too commercial, a little too hokey. But, I was still a fan and had listened to him for forever. And I woke up that morning back in September of 2023, and my wife had tears in her eyes, and they announced that Jimmy Buffett had passed away. It was a sad time, and they didn't announce right away what the cause of death was. I knew he'd been sick, but I didn't know what had actually killed him. And
this story gives me goosebumps. Go ahead, sir.
Well, yeah, my mother was 76 years old. She was the same age as Jimmy, and she lived in Arkansas, and I was her only child. And she was fighting a very aggressive, very rare form of skin cancer called Merkel cell carcinoma. And while I was up in Arkansas caring for her, they announced that Jimmy Buffett died of Merkel cell carcinoma. And Mom died almost 1 month later to the day.
Oh, my goodness.
Jimmy, I think, died on September 2nd, and my mom died on October 11th, 2023. One of the things that I remember was sitting on her back porch, listening to Bubbles Up. That was the song that had just come out after Jimmy had passed away. So I'm sitting here with my mother. She's on morphine. Hospice is in charge now, and we're listening to the song, and then she passed, and it was emotional. And I had several bands down here over the years, and our last band, Southern Tide, we played for 5 years together, and had decided to hang that up a couple of years ago, and I thought I was done with playing music. And so after this experience with Buffett and my mother, and I had started listening to his music again. In fact, Jimmy, if I'm not mistaken, recorded 32 studio albums. So it was a 15-hour one-way trip for me to drive up to Arkansas while we were caring for my mother. And so my wife and I, we listened to every single one of those studio albums, and it took the entire 15-hour trip to Arkansas and then the entire 15 hours back to Florida to get through them all. And I had forgotten what great music outside of the typical Margaritaville and The Pirate Looks at 40 that the man made, and I kind of rediscovered it.
There's more to Jimmy Buffett than fins in Margaritaville.
Oh, there's a lot more. There's a lot more. And that's what I think sets our band apart, because we play Cowboy in the Jungle and Mañana and License to Chill, Havana Daydreamin', Jamaica Mistake, Stars on the Water. We play a lot of these songs that you may not even know are Buffett songs. And in fact, my bass player said when we were just working up the set list, he said, Kenny, I think maybe we're digging a little bit too deep into the deep cuts of Jimmy Buffett here. And I said, Jimmy, if you were a fan of Mr. Buffett back in the day, you bought the album and you listened to all the songs. There were no deep cuts. So people come up and tell us that, oh man, we really appreciate you playing this song or that. I have never heard a band play that.
Right. Jimmy Buffett followers, I think, are almost like a cult. They're so immersed in the world of Jimmy Buffett. A lot of them know every song he's ever recorded.
And there's a real divide. Either I find that people either really don't like Jimmy Buffett or they just love him. And I don't know why there's that divide. Maybe because he got so overblown there in the late 90s, like I was saying earlier. But I will say that we decided to do this little Jimmy Buffett tribute group following his passing, and the ordeal with my mother was kind of what inspired the whole thing. And we thought we'd play a half a dozen shows just following his death there late 2023, early 2024, and be done with it. And it just took off beyond our wildest expectations. And I will say there's, excluding myself, there's a lot of talent in this group. We've got two former professional touring musicians involved. There's a lot of talent there, but the draw of this band, it's not me. It's not the guys in this group. It's the Jimmy Buffett songs. They make people happy, and I think now there's some nostalgia tied to them. Jimmy had a lot of beautiful ballads that he sung, and we play some of those, but we play a lot of upbeat, fun songs. It's a very high-energy set of music that we do, and people respond to it. So we've been booked from Jacksonville to Daytona. We're playing the entire Labor Day weekend this year over in St. Petersburg, Clearwater. We've been booked for 3 nights over there.
That's your stadium tour. Wow.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
We're having a good run. And we're having a lot of fun doing it. So.
Let me ask you this, Ken. Are any of the members of the Landfall Band original members of the Coral Reefer Band?
No, but we've been lucky and fortunate enough to have our local friend Vaughn Cochran, who owns Black Fly Restaurant here in town, come out and join us on a couple of occasions, and my understanding is he's going to join us again July 17th when we play the concerts in the Plaza downtown St. Augustine. Vaughn, I call him the world's most interesting man. He's done a lot of stuff. Former fishing guide, artist, restaurateur, musician, friend of Jimmy Buffett, and I've known Vaughn a long time and really think a lot of him, consider him a good friend. And he was one of the original Coral Reefer band members down in Key West in the early 70s and played washboard with Jimmy. And we've been, again, fortunate enough to have Vaughn join us on stage a couple times.
What's involved in learning the washboard? Can you just pick
I have no idea.
Do you have to take washboard lessons?
I have no idea. But he's good at it.
Is it as difficult as a tambourine?
I don't know, but he's good at it.
Tell me about the other members of Landfall.
We've got Mark Fielding, former chiropractor, buddy of mine from Palm Coast. He's our drummer and percussionist. Plays everything from congas to bongos, and great guy. We've got Dino Balfour, who toured for 15 years with Dion DiMucci. If you remember Run Around Sue and Dion, well, Dino toured and was Dion's piano player for 15 years, and we're lucky enough to have him in the Landfall Band. We've got Tony Kaysen from Nashville, Tennessee, who also plays in a high-powered Jimmy Buffett tribute band up there and across to Waycross, Georgia, called Sons of Sailors. So Tony fell out of the sky into this band when we were just forming, and he's just the finest guitar player I've ever played with, and I've played with a lot of guitar players in a lot of different bands, and plus the nicest guy you'll ever meet.
Mm-hmm. You know what, Ken? I want to invest in your band, the Landfall Band, because, well, it's fabulous and terrific and fun to watch, and you're all very talented as it is. But with the new Margaritaville Resort in Palm Coast, that's really going to, I think, bring a lot of parrot heads to the area. So I think your band's really going to explode.
They've reached out to us. They are currently hiring solo and duo acts, but we have been in contact with the local folks there in Flagler, as well as the Margaritaville corporate outfit based over in Orlando. And we auditioned for Latitude Margaritaville down in Ormond Beach earlier this year, made the cut. They've actually offered us a couple of gigs, but we've been so booked out this year, we were already booked for the dates that they offered us, unfortunately. So,
tell me about some of your upcoming local gigs here in the St. Augustine area.
Well, we play Michael Lugo's Rooftop over at Pesca.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Once a month. We do have the concert series in the downtown St. Augustine Plaza. I believe it's the 17th of July. We've been known to play DJ's Clam Shack, Casa de Vino 57. We play Golden Lion Cafe down in Flagler Beach, Bartlett's Restaurant, in the Hammock. We played the Seawalk Music Festival up in Jacksonville earlier this year, and my understanding is we're going to play that again next spring. The best way to see the schedule is go to our website, which is www.landfallband.com, and please check us out on Facebook, and you just have to add the word the Landfall Band on Facebook, and we have all our shows up there. So
you're listening to Good Morning St. Augustine. I'm your host, Liz Ryan, chatting with Ken Yarbrough. It sounds to me, Ken, like most, if not all, of your gigs are outdoors. How do you manage that? How do you navigate that with living in Florida and you never know when a thunderstorm's going to roll in?
It's impossible, and that was one of the challenges to the
Wednesday night
with Wolfgang and Mickey and the Lions on Wednesday night. And I told Wolfgang, I said, man, had this been any other venue, we would have canceled this at noon today because they were calling for 80% chance of showers. But he's such a dear friend and a sweet guy. We wanted this thing to come off, so we gambled against the odds, and we got a little wet, but we got through it. It's just, hey, it's Florida, and 99% of our gigs are outside, and it's just something that we have to deal with. So occasionally there are gigs that get canceled, and we hate that, and we always hate to call one due to weather. But I think people understand you can't set up thousands of dollars worth of electronics outside and in the weather, and there's a chance for electrocution or you ruining your equipment. So occasionally we just have to make a call. One example was last year, the Sabrage Party Boat hired us we dubbed it the Labor Day Weekend Show, and we promoted that for weeks or months, and sold 174 tickets for 2 cruises, and the second show got rained out, and we had a line of almost 50 people waiting to get on the boat, all dressed up in parrot head stuff, and we had to call it off, and no one wanted to do that. But there was 90%. There was rain moving into the area, and there was just no way to do it. So we just deal with it as best we can.
It's so tricky here in Florida when you never know when a storm's gonna come rolling through, and so many people do so many outdoor activities here.
True.
So Ken, tell me what your personal favorite Jimmy Buffett song is, and do you get to perform that at gigs?
Well, there's so many. I can't say just one.
It's like picking your favorite child, right?
Well, yeah, it is. We do Cowboy in the Jungle, which is a song that kept being requested, and I always liked it, but we hadn't worked it up. And then the last time we played on the Sabrage party boat, there was my understanding is a gentleman asked Jonathan, the owner of the boat, he was tending bar on the cruise. He said, "How do I tip the band? I want to request Cowboy in the Jungle." And John said, while the guy's asking me how he makes a request and tips the band to play Cowboy in the Jungle, he said, "You guys already had kicked off the song." So, we started playing it before the guy had a chance to request it. That's a great song. It's on the Son of a Sailor album, I believe.
Did he take his tip back?
I never even knew he was there. I heard about this after the fact. But there's a lot of great Buffett songs, and we do other stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's Jimmy's stuff that draws the crowd.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you are well aware that A1A was renamed the Jimmy Buffett Memorial Highway.
And I saw the first sign yesterday.
That's what I was going to ask you.
I saw the first sign yesterday.
There were two, I believe, in St. Johns County.
The one I saw was down in towards Marineland. Mm-hmm. But I knew they had them up down in the Keys because we were down there recently, but I hadn't seen any here, and I saw the first one yesterday.
And there's another one up near Ponte Vedra.
Okay.
So are you and your band going to have your picture taken, a publicity photo in front of those signs?
Oh, I don't know. We just had our new publicity photos taken. We did that on Schooner Freedom, so thanks to John and Sarah Zaruba. We just did our new promo photos. I don't know, but I think it's a great thing. I would not have wanted them to change the name of the road from A1A. When I first moved here, A1A was called State Road 3, and I never understood that because A1A to me is like Route 66. It's this historic, scenic highway. Why would you want to call it anything but what it is, But they kept the name A1A Jimmy Buffett Memorial Highway, which I think is appropriate.
Oh, but you've seen a lot of changes here in St. Augustine in your time here.
And I've only been here 24 years. Talk to some of these folks that have lived here all their lives.
It's been through drastic changes. Yeah. Some for the better, some questionable.
Yeah, I just feel fortunate and blessed to have moved here when I did, and got to experience the town as it was then. But my wife has been here 10 years longer than me, and I hear her tell a lot of stories about the way things were 10 years earlier, and a lot of change.
Ken, your face lights up every time you mention your wife. So let's give her props. Tell me how wonderful she is.
Oh, she's great. She's best thing that ever happened to me.
Her name?
Karen.
Karen.
Yeah, most people know her that know me.
Uh-huh.
So it's funny, and a lot of folks get sick of hearing the story because I've told it so many times. But I moved here, I bought this boat, and didn't know a soul. I'm living on the boat at the Conch House for a period of time, and I walked into the downtown post office, and that line of 50 people, and there was the prettiest girl I ever saw at the front counter, and I flirted with her for almost 2 weeks before she'd give me the time of day. But anyway, we had a couple dates, and Karen rode with me on the back of my Harley from St. Augustine to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and back. That was in 1999, and we covered 7,000 miles in 15 days, and I said, man, I found a keeper. So we've been married 20 plus years this year. Wow. She's my best friend.
You found the recipe,
I did.
Huh?
Mm-hmm. She's the reason I stuck around here. Really.
Oh, good for you. Congratulations. Before I let you go, tell me about your social media, Ken.
Social media is, again, thelandfallband.com. We've got over 1,700 followers up there now. It's amazing. And we post pretty regularly about appropriate things in our upcoming shows. So check that out if you would.
All right. What do you think you'll do with the rest of your Sunday, Ken?
I'm going to relax because we've got a busy couple of months. The band. I'm semi-retired, but my wife and I do have a little business down at Palm Coast, and I have started fishing again. I've picked up golf clubs again. I've had no problems filling my time, but the band is playing a lot. We take off the month of June for vacations, and we take off the month of September for vacations. So July and August are slam packed. We're playing 2 or 3 days a week, almost every week for the next 2 months. So I'm going to go home and rest, and I don't even remember where we're playing next weekend, but I know we play two gigs next weekend. So
all right. Well, you've got a new groupie in me.
Oh, great. Well, thank you very much, and thanks for having me in, and maybe do it again down the road.
I can't wait, and I'll have Wolfgang on very
Please
soon,
do.
maybe next
Great
week.
Guy. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Ken Yarborough. Appreciate your time this Sunday morning. Thank you for listening, and remember, all of our broadcasts can be downloaded as a podcast. Go to flaglerbroadcasting.com, click on podcasts, and scroll down to Good Morning St. Augustine. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday in our beautiful, ancient, historic city.